Hello, everyone. Welcome back and welcome to our very first Executive Table Talk in 2023. You don't know me by now. My name is JT O'Donnell. I'm the founder and CEO of Worky Daily, and I am the lucky individual that gets to moderate these Executive Table Talks each and every week live here on LinkedIn. And it's only appropriate that we start this week off because I think this week is sluggish for a lot of people. You know, everyone's slowly rolling back into it. So we're talking about New Year's resolutions, as we should. And let's be honest, we know most people don't keep their resolutions, but I have an amazing group of executives here today who are going to talk to you about how you can make reasonable resolutions and actually achieve them. And I think they've also got some really interesting insights around some things you should be thinking about. And if you haven't chosen any resolutions yet, especially when it comes to your career, I think we've got some good ideas for some that you might want to make your very own. So with that in mind, let me bring this wonderful crew up to the stage. Hello, executives. How are you all today?
Hello.
Great.
It's so good to have you here. So, folks, this is the amazing Executive Top Voices team. These are just a few of the hundreds of executives that share their voices over at Work It Daily, their expertise. And I feel so lucky to have them here. And so they all took the time to weigh in and share their ideas around New Year's resolutions. And, I want to start today. I want to bring it up and start with you today, Michael, because when I asked this question of resolution, you made a really interesting point. You said, by definition, a resolution is a decision to do something or not do something. And for you, that meant a plan, right? And I love that because people make these random New Year's resolutions every year. Like the number one I hear all the time is, I think, historically is lose weight, get in shape, right? And I swear sliding in at a hot second is, fixing your career, getting a new job, something along those lines. But rarely do I hear people think about the plan and the structure, and that's got to come from I'm assuming some of this comes from your background in sports and sports operations.
Yes,
talk
absolutely.
to me about this.
Yes, I like having a plan, a framework. It gives you direction on where you're going and how you're going to get there. I have a little 6-point plan I like to follow. Gather the information, which means there's going to be short-term, long-term, set objectives for the plan. What's the end game? What's it going to look like at the end? And you devise a strategy, and you meet the goals. You build a timeline. And number 4, I like to implement the plan. That's when you kick off. Let's play. Let's go. We're ready to go. And you monitor. You kick the tires. That's number 5. You kick the tires and make sure things are working right. And number 6, you just evaluate it. Is this what we wanted to do? Is this what we started out to do? And that's my little 6-point plan there. But I like a structured existence. I really like structure.
I do too. And the fact that you could rattle off those 6 steps so quickly and cleanly means it's doable. Do you know what I mean? It's not overly complex. I also love that you don't kick off until number 4. So everyone here should be listening that you don't wake up on January 1 and just get in on it, right? Like the fact that you've got a whole strategy there to make sure that it's successful, is really the key that I think a lot of people don't always consider, don't you think?
Right. Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of other things going on. You got to make sure this all fits into the overall structure. Like I said, for me, I look at the company's mission, goals, and its competitors. So does it all fit? Does it all fit into that framework? Because that's why we're here. That's why we're working at this company. We're working to achieve the company's mission, its goals, and check on what are our competitors, who are they, and what do they mean for us. So that's why I like that structure.
I know you've always talked about that on this show. You've been really very good and consistent about that. And I think that the point there for me is, if you're working someplace, you've got to make sure that whatever you want to make happen aligns with what they're doing, or it's not going to happen. That job is the vehicle. So if that can't be the vehicle to your success, then it might be time to look for a new job, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You want everyone going in the same direction too. You want everyone working together, going toward that same common good.
I totally agree. Great stuff. And it's funny because you talked about this, and John Shambara, you dove right in, you tag teamed in on the conversation with Michael and took it a step further and said, a New Year's resolution that all executives should make is to be proactive in vesting others into the implementation of the organizational goals. So even if you're a business of one, which I preach, we all preach at Work It Daily, we're all businesses of one. You have to think about, how am I going to get my clients, aka my peers, my manager, the company as a whole, invested in the value of what I'm trying to create or offer, So talk to us about that, because you're a nonprofit. And I think getting people vested, that's got to be a challenge to a degree.
It's a challenge, but also, and thank you, JT, it's a challenge, but it's also a necessary, because Michael's exactly right. If one doesn't have a plan, if you don't have a map, on how to get to success. How do you know if you've reached that success or not?
Mhm.
So yes, planning has to be at the core of any resolution, at the core of any change initiative. But then after that, as you were even saying, JT, whether or not you're a business of one working with clients, or whether or not you're in a corporate environment, an organizational environment, very few plans fail or succeed on the back of one individual, right? I am a consultant in nonprofit. If my clients don't go and do the work that I suggest they do, it's not going to happen, right? I could have all the goals, all the planning in the world. If people are invested in doing what I'm suggesting they do in terms of school improvement, because I'm in the education space, it's not going to happen. And conversely, again, even in a corporate environment, whether for-profit or not for-profit, we have to vest our stakeholders in our goals, in our mission. I heard it said recently that people change for 4 reasons: when they have to, when they learn enough, when they see enough, and when they're given enough. So I think it does bear some repeating that there is a value once you decide what that plan is, to consider how you're going to bring others along in implementing that plan and who's responsible for what part of that plan.
Oh man, I mean, you were saying such important things here because, they talk about the fact that change doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? And so, that's what we're talking about, right? Folks, you're changing. When you're making a resolution, you're doing something different, you're building a plan, but it can't happen independently. There's no way you're not going to rely on someone else or something else in order to make that happen, which I hear you loud and clear. And I actually love those 4. Can you say those 4 again? I want to
I heard this on a New Yorker radio hour recently, and the gentleman, I forget his first name, but his last name is Khan, and he is the choreographer of a new version of the ballet Giselle. And they were talking about how to change Giselle for a modern audience. And what he said is, people change when they have enough pain that they must.
Yeah.
People change when they see enough that they're inspired. People change when they learn enough that they desire to make that change. And 4th, people change when they are given enough that they're actually developing the efficacy to do that.
It's amazing. I mean, it's so, I love hearing things like that because those things are true, but somebody finally says all those things together and it just, a bell goes off.
Yeah, it was definitely a light bulb moment. I was driving in my car and I went, I have to remember this. There's posting that could come from this.
There is definitely. I think there needs to be a lot more of a conversation around it. I love that. And it ties so beautifully. I swear that it's amazing to watch all of you comment every week and then to see the synergies across what you discuss because, Hannah, you dove right in and talked about in your comments that we can't keep making the same resolutions year over year. We need to look back and make sure that we're changing up our resolutions and doing different things. And so you offered several suggestions. And by the way, folks, in case you're wondering, the full featured resolutions of each of these amazing executives is going to be tomorrow. It gets posted tomorrow on Work It Daily. So if you're not a subscriber to Work It Daily, you should be, because all of these great nuggets will be in there. But Hannah, one of yours stood out to me, which is this idea of internal networking, which I think plays off of what John is saying. Getting to know your colleagues within different teams and departments, subsidiaries, and new hires sort of needs to be a must do. And I think about COVID and the pandemic and virtual working and how much people have stopped doing that. And I would almost think everyone should make this one of their resolutions this year if they're working. So talk to me more about that.
Absolutely. I just see it as a way to constantly add value, not just to your department or your immediate group of colleagues that you work with, but also the entire company. So getting to know different departments. Maybe you'll find out about a department that your manager or a vice president didn't know. And then you can add a lot of value by figuring out ways to help each other.
Yeah, it's incredible. In your background, in organizational change, you must be seeing a lot right now, just the challenges that companies are having, right? Whether you read the headlines and you see, yet another mainstream company is doing mega layoffs and restructuring. So how can this also help people who are sitting in companies that are sort of uncertain right now?
Oh, there's definitely a lot of uncertainty across so many companies, if not most companies. So, getting to know other people, I mean, there's a lot of value. Maybe you could form a friendship and get to know each other. Again, just ways to help each other. It's not necessarily work specific, which is the fun part of networking too, because then you expand and get to know other people on different levels.
Yeah, I agree with you. It just has to be a connection, folks. I think
Mhm.
Hannah's right. I think this is a priority right now for everyone. And if you're not doing it, one of the challenges could be later on, if you're not known and your value isn't known, that can put you at risk as well, right? So for me, I thought this was a top-notch one, really, really good. And then we lead into another one that I fell in love with. I can honestly say, Lisa Perry, I've never seen anyone make this a recommendation for a New Year's resolution, and I'm in love with it, and I'm for it, I'm doing it. You talk about making a commitment essentially to daydreaming and saying daydreaming is a source of creative inspiration. It's a way to make space for more creativity, innovation, success, and you've got to find the time to get lost in your thoughts. Talk to me about that. How are you using that resolution? Why is it so important?
Well, New Year's resolutions are all about, pivoting, changing, taking yourself to new heights, new areas. And if we look at the last 2 years, it's been hard for everyone. Everyone can sit there and say it's been the survival of the fittest, whether it's the pandemic, the recession, you name it, something has happened. And we've been in this survivor mold and we haven't had a chance to dream big and think about where we could go. What are the possibilities? And so daydreaming creatively is an opportunity to get lost in your thoughts and think, what are the possibilities of where I can take myself personally and professionally? And so it's simple. One of the things about New Year's resolutions is, you start them off and you immediately fail and you start beating yourself up. So tip one is be kind to yourself, and it's okay if, it's about the simple steps of taking things forward and a few steps back and a few steps forward. So 5 minutes every day, just 5 minutes, set your timer, and then just think, what do I want to achieve by the end of 2023? What does that look like? What would I be so proud of? And let the floodgates open. Don't hold back on anything. Dream big. Just let it go. And then as you're sitting there for 5 minutes, jot some stuff down. Don't be afraid. Lean in. Dream big and let that innovation and it's time to get lost in your thoughts. And that's where you never know what happens. Keep a book and just let it go. We've got to start thinking and being creative and being innovative, because we've just been surviving the last 2 years.
Yeah. So I love this too, because we were talking, so all of us executives get together. It's the most amazing group. And we were talking about this new trend that Robert Glazer coined. So folks, he's out of Boston. He runs a company called Acceleration Partners. And he started talking about this ambition recession that's going on right now, that just people don't feel very ambitious. And I think it's during the pandemic, I think you're pointing it out, Lisa, we got really focused on our personal lives. Like, what should our personal lives look like? And a lot of people realized, gee, work wasn't working for me. And I think a lot of people have made big, great strides in changing where their priorities are and caring more about taking care of themselves and their lives. And I'm so grateful for that. But to your point, we stopped dreaming about work. And folks, we do need to work. And so it makes me sad to hear that there's an ambition recession, because ambition doesn't need to be a dirty word. Not if you do what Lisa said and you just sit down and you think, like, what is possible? And still keep my amazing life and my priorities in check, but what is possible? And Lisa is one of those people that's made it possible, and she's not mentioned this, but she dreamed big last year, and she literally published a book at the end of last year. And it's on
Yay.
Amazon now. In fact, I know I think the next 30 days, folks, and you can get it if you download it. You can get it for free if you download it on Kindle. And it is such a great read. Lisa, give everybody the name of the book.
It's How to Develop a Brand Strategy. It's a step-by-step guide with templates. It'll definitely help you drive your your strategy at your company.
And this is somebody who's done big CPG. If you want to know, like, consumer packaged goods, that's the lingo, folks. But we're talking about a brand strategy book that if you're somebody that's on Instagram and always dreamed of starting a product and a brand, her methodology works. If you're a big company, her methodology works. And she took all this through the content that she's been writing all throughout the year and created this amazing book. And so talk about dreaming big. And so I'm sure you have big plans for this year too. And I won't make you share them, Lisa, but I just say that because I know your daydreaming strategy works because you've applied it to yourself, which is pretty phenomenal. So congratulations. We're so thankful.
Appreciate it.
Folks, if you have questions for this amazing crew about New Year's resolutions, how to keep them, tips, questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. I do want to go around and ask each one of you, has there ever been a resolution in the past that you kept that is memorable to you? Or do you think we just make them, and whether we keep them or not, do we forget about them? Like, does anybody have a memorable resolution that they actually made it through on? I know I'm big silent. I struggle to think of one. I mean, I'm going to be the first to tell you, and I'm a pretty driven person, but I always struggle to think of one. Michael, you raised your hand. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I haven't one that I've actually kept. And of course, I always want to lose weight or do something, but I think most people don't realize that failure is part of any process that we do. That, you know, sometimes, you know, failure is part of it. Sometimes we fall back. I don't care if it's whether you want to lose weight or get off something or get on something. Failure is part of it. And that's something that I think that, you know, they don't teach that. And even daydreaming, I was just listening to Lisa's about daydreaming. I mean, that's not taught in school. That no one teaches you that stuff. I mean, that's important stuff to daydream and figure out, well, hey, think about where can I be? What do I want to do? And no one teaches you that. Matter of fact, they discourage it. Stop daydreaming. I remember in school, you said, you're daydreaming. What are you thinking? I get back on the task. But no one teaches you. And I think that's a very, very important concept, daydreaming.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I like that you're talking about failure. Because I wonder, like, how many things maybe I have achieved and they started as a resolution, right? But over time, they morphed into maybe a goal that I finally got focused on. I guess is my point is, some people say don't bother making resolutions because nobody keeps them. But I think you should. I think you should make resolutions. Like you said, it's the beginning of the failure. And if you're failing forward, somewhere down the line, some iteration of that is probably going to come to pass if it was meant to be, you know? Yeah. I thought there, John, you're nodding your head. What are your thoughts?
I am. Again, I'm going to piggyback on Michael's pearls of wisdom. It is about, I think one can take failure and turn it into success, right? And to use failure to develop your resolutions moving forward. And in my case, several years back, I mean, I was talking about this in terms of planning and getting more people vested, and that's all well and good, but I do think as people, when we get excited about our initiatives, we tend to run with them and hope people are kind of following along. So in a 360 review process, I did hear feedback from some of the people that reported to me that while they found me very helpful and supportive, they did want to get a word in edgewise, right? So that really made me think about not just, you know, initiating plans, but again, how to listen, how to involve others in the process of work. So in taking that, my resolution that year was really how to ensure that others have the space that they need to contribute to our overall goals. So I'm a very visual person, and most of the people I was working with at that time were as well. So really I developed a Google sheet where if we were going to have a meeting, 2/3 of that meeting was anything they wanted to discuss with me, and I put that up front. And I really felt that did help our communication practices moving forward.
Isn't it interesting that your resolution was based and rooted in feedback? So you go back to what you were saying earlier, like if you're in enough pain or, you know, the different things that will make you change. I wonder if a litmus test to your resolution is, are you there yet? With any of those things. Like if this is your resolution, a way to figure out if you're really going to succeed with it is, are you in enough pain? Have you seen enough? Do you have enough? Right. Those things that you talked about, because you can say that resolution all you want, but as you pointed out, if you're not feeling or having those things, it's probably not going to happen.
Exactly.
And I just want to chime in, you know, I think it's a shame that companies, more companies don't embrace failure, quite honestly. You know, you look at a toddler who's learning to, you know, a baby who's learning to walk, they fall all the time, right? That's the failure, and that's the process. We have to learn what is good failure and what's bad failure, right? If you somebody fails and you say, okay, here's what you do next time, but if they keep doing the same mistakes over and over again, that's not good. But if they're making a mistake that they didn't know, that's good failure. You want somebody to, if you haven't taught somebody or they don't know it, you've got to give them the space to learn and not beat somebody up. You've got to give people the freedom to make failure and not beat people over the head. Failure is good. It helps people grow. And I don't think we give, society and people enough room to fail. And, because then people just clam up and they're like, I'm not going to speak up. I'm not going to share my idea. This culture is not, it's not okay to lean in and take that risk. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I have a writing partner, and he is the one that coined the term "experiments never fail." And he said, if you lead a business thinking about we're experimenting, so you take that pressure off fail, because I think there is a way to define good failure, bad failure, like you're talking about. There might be some very clear things that you messed that up, that there was a way to do that and you didn't do it. But to call it failure when all you were doing was experimenting or trying something new you're right. We've got to get better with that. And it's unfortunate. I think a lot of companies and a lot of managers get under pressure and suddenly everything's right or wrong, black or white. And meanwhile, in my company all the time, we talk about happy accidents. Like there's stuff that it goes wrong, it fails. So we look and go, how can we turn it around? And so many times we'll look back and go, gee, it's really good that happened. Because it turned out to be a happy accident that turned into something good, right? So I think you're so right that having that mindset going forward so that you can to learn and get through and actually achieve what you're trying to make happen in your resolution is going to involve a lot of failing. You absolutely nailed it.
Right.
I love the idea of a happy accident. That's such a positive way to kind of twist the experience. But also there's a lot of learnings and a lot of value in sort of failing fast, because through that experience, some things went well, some things didn't. There's a lot of value.
I always threaten when we had a physical office, and you can ask employees, I always threaten to install a failure bell to celebrate. Like ding, ding, ding. All right. Way to go. Mess that one up. Because how are we learning and growing? So if we change the narrative of what failure means, it was always my inspiration. We're virtual now, but maybe someday if we go back, that's still a mission in life to have the failure bell. Let somebody walk over there and ring it. Because all we ever do is ring for success. Right. And it's playing too safe. So I love it. It's so good. Great stuff here. And I just want to say thank you to everyone that's tuning in. A lot of people are really enjoying this conversation around our honesty around it, the fact that people are feeling what they're feeling. So hopefully you're getting inspired to make a New Year's resolution. I would love, if you're dialing in today, if you have a resolution that you've made that's career related and you're willing to share it, go ahead and post it in the comments. I would absolutely love to see them. And I just want to see Chris Harmon has got a really great comment here for all of you to see. He said, I've worked with a lot of different organizations and every one of them has had at least one major failing that I witnessed. However, instead of using it as a learning experience to regroup and move forward, too often it became the witch hunt of who to blame. That is exactly what we're talking about, Chris. So hopefully there's a lot of leaders listening to this today, and their New Year's resolution should be to not have the witch hunt. There's going to be failure, install a failure bell. Go the other way. Right?
It's also interesting. I've learned that when, somebody, I'm working with cross-functional people or employees that, they've failed at something. It's also opened my eyes to say, hey, there's a process here that needs to change. Right. Through somebody's failure, you realize that they've come in and identified a problem with the organization, so it's actually sometimes a good thing that the failure highlights.
Well, and I would turn around and say, I think one of the things that makes all of you so exceptional, one of the reasons I feel so lucky at Working Daily, the executives that we have that are being top voices, the intellectual humility in this group. I don't know if you're all the audience, if you're seeing it, but you see the level of intellectual humility and emotional intelligence in this group is absolutely amazing. And one of the things that I can tell is that you all are comfortable with admitting failure, which there are a lot of leaders that are not there. That aren't, and here's the thing, we have to be okay and lead by example, which is admit we failed, right? So that our staff knows that it's okay to fail. And by the way, so that it makes it okay for us to fail, right? We just can't be perfect. We can't expect that in others, and we can't expect it in ourselves. And so the tone in which all of you are explaining is so inspiring. And so folks, here's what I want you to do, because we only have a few minutes left with these folks. I have their names up here for a reason. Every single one of these individuals can be found on LinkedIn. And I know that they all are fully comfortable with having you reach out and connect with them. So the thing to do today is, if you see them, go look them up on LinkedIn. And when you invite them to connect, please customize the connection request and tell them that you saw them on Executive Table Talk on ETT. That's how they'll know to accept your connection request, okay? So please go find them, because they're an incredible group of individuals for sure. I love it. I see another question, a comment here from Wendy, which I think is great. Leaders I've worked with also need to be accountable to their team and share goals for coming year. I worked recently with someone who treated the company as his only, but the team as his was responsible. So I totally get that. So I think that's another thing that we want to make sure that people understand, is that you can't make everyone else on your team responsible for your goal. And that goes back, John, to your comment about getting everyone vested, like getting that vision. Wendy agreed across the board. I don't think there's a single person here that doesn't agree with that. It's so crazy. And another comment here from Todd, another listener: a true leader accepts responsibility of their team's failings and recognizes that they need to recognize that stepping up is sometimes necessary by them, and now turned it into a learning opportunity. I think that's exactly what you were talking about too, Lisa, right? Like we need to absolutely own that. And, if we're leaders and we chose to be in charge, with that came the responsibility of protecting our team. And from, if they failed, and taking ownership of that. If they failed, it was on our watch. Yes. Right. And so we have to own that as well. I love that. Love it. Love it. So I want to go around for each of you. Would each of you do a nice service here and just tell everyone a little bit about your background? I know they can all find you on LinkedIn, but I think everyone needs to know about your various backgrounds. So Hannah, share everyone your background and specialty as an executive.
Sure. So organizational change management and learning and development.
Amazing. And Michael?
Me, in football operations. I worked 22 and a half years at the National Football League. So I worked in operations, accounting, finance, anything with a dollar sign. That's me.
I love it. Which, by the way, can we all agree? I'm totally stereotyping here, which we need to break, because historically the numbers people don't tend to be so amazing on camera and such great presenters, right? And I know that that's changing. I'm meeting more and more CFOs out there. But Michael, I think the fact that you can both do the numbers and have such a great style and personality is amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate being here.
Lisa, what about your background?
Yeah, I'm a brand marketing executive. I've worked for Fortune 100 companies to emerging growth startups. And yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn at Lisa Perry Marketing.
And say the name of the book again.
Yes, How to Develop a Brand Strategy, and you can find it on Amazon.
Go download it, folks. And John, what about you?
Sure. So like Hannah, I am involved in learning and development and school improvement work. And people can find me on LinkedIn, TikTok, and I have some teaching courses that teachers might be interested in at Have a Life Teaching on Teachable.
Yeah, amazing. Have a Life Teaching, great coursework for anybody out there in the teaching profession. Folks, again, you can find all these folks on LinkedIn. They're also all published authors. They also do amazing content work over at Work It Daily. You can find all the things that they've written about there. Such smart individuals. I want to thank you all for being on the show today. What a way to kick off the new year. Hopefully I'm going to get a whole bunch of you back here on ETT. Folks, we're here every single week, Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time here on LinkedIn. So please check it out. You can find all the events on my event calendar on my profile page. We love having you here. Lots of great topics coming in the future, okay? All right, well, until next time, remember, if you want to win, you've got to work it daily. So come back and see us soon. Take care. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.